We're going to start with the latest news out of Turkey, a country that sits partly in Asia and partly in Europe. A powerful 7.8 magnitude earthquake occurred Monday in Turkey and parts of Syria, which collapsed thousands of buildings, killing more than 3,000 people. It created a new humanitarian disaster in a region already strained by war, a refugee crisis, and deep economic troubles. Turkey hosts 3.6 million Syrian refugees, the most in the world. And governments from around the world have been quick to respond to Turkey's request for international assistance.
Will it take my job?
Yes and no. It's not going to replace you. Someone who knows how to use it well is going to take your job, and that's a guarantee.
By 2025, the World Economic Forum predicts that 85 million jobs will be displaced by automation and technology, but it will also create 97 million new roles. We've seen it before in the auto industry.
While the auto worker may be displaced because they are not as good at welding or as painting as the robot, there's probably 35 people that have to be involved in the creation and maintenance of that device that welds better than a person.
And that's what happened at Carbon Robotics. Former auto workers now building an AI laser weeder in Detroit for farms. The laser weeder, still operated by a human but run by AI, can do the work of between 40 to 80 people, says the CEO, filling roles that are hard to find humans for. This music is composed solely by artificial intelligence called Ava. It even has an album you can stream. AI music is more affordable. There's no producer, composer, or artist to pay.
It's taken away opportunity from songwriters, producers, and artists.
And Bobby is a Portuguese Mastiff from Portugal, and at 30 years old, he has now been named the world's oldest living dog by the Guinness World Records. Having lived twice his life expectancy, he's also now considered officially the oldest dog to ever live. The previous record of 29 years and 5 months was set back in the 1930s by an Australian cattle dog named Bluey. Bobby's age has been confirmed by the Veterinary Medical Service and a Portuguese pet database.
Kindergarten is learning about Black History Month. Let's take a look.
What did you learn about Black History Month? I learned about Garrett Morgan, who invented the first stoplight. He also repaired sewing machines. And there was also Ruby Bridges, a brave little girl walking into school with people about to threat her.
Remember when this happened?
This Tuesday night, there was going to be a snowstorm, but then we got caught in the donut hole.
And then this happened.
Fifth grade has been working on biographies. Let's look at a few.
Hi, my name is Helen Collier, and I was born and raised in Tulsa, Alabama on June 27, 1880. When I was a baby, I was diagnosed with scarlet fever, and a week later, I was blind. 5 through 6 years old, I became deaf. On December 1st, 1896, my sister Mildred was born. 900 through 1904, I went to Radcliffe College and one of the first people to graduate blind and deaf. In 1919 through 1924, I started to do lectures and tours all over the USA. In 1920, I helped find the American civil liberties. On November 15th, 1921, my mother, Kate Adams Keller, died. I published my first book at the age of 22. It was a story of my life. I died June 1st, 1968 at the age of 87.
My version is named Claire Barden, and she was born in 1821 with her sister, and she said that she was born into a grown-up family because her sister, her youngest sister in the family then before she was born, was 11 years old, and her youngest brother was 13. Her oldest brother was 15, and her eldest sister was 17 or 16. Claire's family was very lively, in which they talked about her a lot, but sometimes she wasn't the center of attention. Claire's father worked for the Northwest Territory as a guard, Claire became a teacher at only age 16, and she did not like using the physical discipline. She even opened her own school in 1852, but since it was that year, people took it away from her, and she didn't become the principal of it. And a year before that, her mother passed away from a sickness when she was only 50-something. Then a year later, the Civil War began, and after 15 years of successful teaching, she became a nurse for the Civil War. After the war was fought, or after the war ended, she went to find soldiers that were missing from the Union. Then, because of depression, she went to Europe to relax. But then she came upon the Red Cross, and she joined in. Then after a little bit of time, the Franco-Persian War started, and she became a nurse for the Red Cross. Claire wanted to make a treaty that will make sure that the hospitals are treated neutral and take in any soldier, whether it's from the bad guy's side or the good guy's side. Claire was finally able to get the president's attention, and he was expressing interest in her idea, but nor his secretary or his assistant were willing to see her because she was just a woman. And then discouraged, she went to a town she used to live at, which is Dansville, and there she bought a home, grew a garden, and got a cat named Tommy. Then she published a pamphlet about the Red Cross. Then when a new president was elected, his name was James A. Garfield. He showed interest, but unfortunately, shortly after, he was assassinated. After hard work, though, Claire was elected for president of the Red Cross, but the problem was that she had to use her own money for the Red Cross. Then she got replaced by another woman, and she was saddened by the deaths of many of her friends and family members. But then she published a 700-page book about peace and the Red Cross. Then she suffered 2 attacks of pneumonia. Then, on April 12, 1912, sadly, she died of old age. The end.
Presenting Harriet Tubman, written by Sayla Nelson.
Harriet Tubman was a lot of wonderful things. She was a former slave who risked her life to help other slaves to freedom. She was a nurse who saved soldiers during the Civil War, and she was a Civil War spy for the Union Army. After doing these things, Harriet was so strong, and brave, not even just physically strong, but mentally strong as well. She even had a weight thrown out of her head as a kid. See? And that is why that's why she wore a bandana. But it also symbolized that she was no longer a child, which would normally happen about age 10. When Harriet was about 20, she married a man named John Harriet, who wasn't a slave. But during the marriage, Harriet still was working towards her dream to freedom, which took lots of time, patience, and commitment. One night, Harriet escaped. She had to take many stops and took so much courage with the risk of death. Throughout her journey, she had to give and get many pep talks to change her mindset. When she finally escaped, she would bring more and more people to freedom each time she went. Soon enough, there was also a price on Harriet's head, so she had to be a little more secretive. So back then, girls or ladies had to wear a dress. So Harriet would wear men-like clothing as a disguise, but she still fought for her and others' freedom. A few years later, a war broke out because of slavery. It was a war between the Union Army and the Southern Army. Harriet played 2 big roles in that war. She was a nurse who saved soldiers. She was also a spy for the Union Army. Later that year, the Union Army won the battle and slavery was ended. But Harriet grew old and lived a happy life ever since.
Did you know Amelia Earhart was born on July 24th, 1897? Amelia Earhart was also a nurse. Harper, stop dancing. Harper,
you can get replaced.
Okay.
All right.
Amelia Earhart worked as a nurse's aide at the Spadina Hospital. She mostly washed clothes and bedding. She also cooked food for the patients. But at the time, Amelia only flew airplanes as a hobby. Amelia's grandmother wanted Amelia to be ladylike. She wanted her to wear dresses and play with dolls and be girly, but Amelia wanted to be adventurous and play football and wear pants and shorts and stuff like that. Amelia got first got interested in airplanes on her 9th birthday. Her dad took her to an air show, and then after that she couldn't stop thinking about airplanes. There are many theories where Amelia Earhart went. She crashed and sank in the ocean. But most people think she crashed in the Bermuda Triangle.
Amelia Earhart was born on July 24th. Her first solo flight was in 1932, and when she was first born, she lived in Atchison, Kansas, but she often moved around due to her father's job. He was a lawyer for the railroad. Amelia's first book was published. It was called 20 Hours and 40 Minutes. She began her flight around the world. It was her last ever flight, even though she didn't know it would be. There are many theories, as Emily said, where people think she crashed in the ocean or on an island, but many also think that she crashed over the Bermuda Triangle and she was never found after that.
Kindergarten is involved in a book challenge. Let's take a look.
The 100 Book Challenge is where you have to read 100 books from the start of January to the end of the school year. If we read 150 books, then we get to throw a pie in our teacher's face. I read 140 books.
On Friday, 5th grade is going to the Discovery Lab to explore.
All right, and to end this week, we had some visitors from the Republic of Georgia, which is a country on the other side of the world. So starting off here, we are in Tulsa, and when I zoom out, you can kind of see all of Tulsa, and that's inside of Oklahoma. And then we keep zooming out, and you can see Texas down here, and then all of the United States. Now, a lot of you might be thinking, oh, our visitors were from Georgia, which is right here by Florida. But no, we're talking about the Republic of Georgia. So when we keep zooming out, and then we go all the way across the ocean to Europe, a lot of you will be familiar with like London and Paris and France. But if we keep going over on the other side of the Black Sea, you will see Georgia. And now we're going to take a look at some of the things that our students learned today. So we did go ahead and take a look at the alphabet from Georgia. As you can see, we've got A. This would be their A, B, and then it goes to G. They actually have more letters in their alphabet than we do. Then they talked about this interesting dish that they have that's kind of like a pizza with cheese and an egg inside of this Georgian cheese bread dish. And then we talked about how Georgia actually has the tallest mountain in Europe. And lastly, we talked about how they have the tallest mountain in Europe, but they also have the deepest cave in the entire world right in their country. Okay.
Kindergarten, really quickly, come to the carpet. We've got some really special guests. Wow.
Where is the canyon?
I just saw how.
There is
I'm not going to do that.
That's for 5 lovers. This special celebrate Christmas. Where do you celebrate here?
Hello. Okay, your name, but it's very